Hello everyone, welcome to AITAREYA Institute. So, as we have said it, I'll repeat this again. Success in civil services does not come from reading more news. It comes from analyzing the right news in the right way. So let's begin today's current affairs discussion with a clear focus on concepts, context, and an exam-oriented analysis. Okay. So, beginning with today's discussion, our first topic of discussion is ethical AI. Ethical AI and conscience prompting. Okay, a very good topic to begin with. So you can utilize the content of this topic while writing your answers in mains on ethics, or even if a question arises on AI. So recent analysis underscores that AI ethics demands far more than voluntary corporate pledges. So it is not just about the corporates, it's also about the users. So it calls for structural safeguards against algorithmic bias. We'll be talking about the algorithmic bias, mass surveillance, and a Supreme Court is against this kind of mass surveillance using artificial intelligence, data extraction, copyright violations that has been prevalent since the onset of the AI era, and labor exploitation. And we have seen videos going viral as to how the laborers are being exploited on account of AI. Okay, at the heart of this debate is a powerful technique called conscience prompting. So, what is conscience prompting? Before moving towards the conscience prompting, you can also remember one more thing here. You can use it in your mains answers. That is Acilomer. Acilomer AI principles. Okay, Acilomer AI principles. It won't be asked in your prelims, but today even in prelims also these kind of questions could be asked since starting from this year's paper. So it calls for research and value. It talks about various ethical things, like it talks about liberty, it talks about privacy, it talks about shared benefits. Okay, it talks about reducing the AI arms race. Okay, so research goals to research funding, science policy links to safety. It focuses upon transparency. So if there is a question on transparency in ethics, you can include this Asilomar AI principles. It talks about shared benefits. It talks about prosperity. Shared prosperity. Okay, it talks about human values. Check. So all these things. So all in all, you can include this. You must include the Asilomar AI principle. I just needed to tell you it's very important. Okay, it will essentially make your answers a bit different from the rest of the people. Okay, so first of all, what is conscience prompting? It's an advanced system level engineering technique. It's an advanced system level engineering technique that embeds explicit ethical guidelines, human values, and contextual moral constraints directly directly into the foundational prompts of the LLMs. LLMs, your large language models and generative AI systems. I'm sure you must have heard about this term LLM. There are various LLMs which are very famous. One is your Chat GPT. I'm sure you must have heard about Chat GPT. Very famous. Anna, one thing you have to do is please do mention in the comment section what is the full form of GPT. I think it was in BPSC it was asked what is the full form of GPT. You must have heard. So this is why whenever you read something, and you read an article, be curious about it. Curious in terms of it's what it is, how it can be applied, okay, and what are its challenges, what could be the solutions of the issues. All these things you have to be keep. This is what UPSC is testing. So you have ChatGPT, you have Google LM, you have Gemini. So you have various large language models. So this conscience prompting, what it focuses upon is that you must have ethical guidelines, human values, and moral constraint into the foundational prompts of the large language models. Okay, so that it is not violated. Okay, this was the issue. One more issue I would like to highlight with Grok. Grok is LLM of Twitter, or today which it is called as X. It is owned by Elon Musk. So Grok had this issue of not having a conscience prompting. So people misused Grok to create, uh, you know, nude pics of people, of various sorts of activity. I would not like to go into much detail about this, but this was the main issue with Grok. To a large extent, I won't say that ChatGPT is free from it, but to a large extent, they have tried to inculcate conscience prompting in ChatGPT. You know, how much successful they have been, that is another thing to discuss upon. Okay, how it works, how the conscience prompting works. So rather than relying solely on post facto content filtering, you know, post facto content filtering, conscience prompting forces the AI to evaluate its own outputs through a structured moral framework before displaying them. And this is, you can try this on ChatGPT. If you put a prompt, let's say you want to create, let's say, thumbnail of any kind of thumbnail or anything that you want to create, which is non-ethical, and anything that you try to provide to ChatGPT, then what it will do is it will evaluate. Firstly, it will evaluate its output through a moral framework before displaying it to you. And if it finds out that it does not fit in within the moral framework of the ChatGPT, then it will simply give you a message that this cannot be undertaken as per the guidelines of the ChatGPT. Okay, so this is how the things are done, and not just solely relying on post facto content filtering. Okay, it functions as a built-in digital conscience, actively suppressing toxic content. I'll give you an example. Give ChatGPT, uh, find out, give ChatGPT, ask it to find out certain ways for gaslighting, how to gaslight people, and a simple thing. It will not, it will simply say no, this cannot be done by ChatGPT. Okay, because it is against the guidelines of the ChatGPT. So it is suppressing any toxic content, any societal bias, and any misinformation. So all these things have to be taken care of, not just by ChatGPT, but all the large language models. And here, the most susceptible and vulnerable thing here is this Grok. You can always use the example of Grok to, criticize the large language models. Okay. Now moving towards the key features, challenges, and methods. So constitutional anchoring. The idea should be that the framework should be anchored. The anchor should be constitution and the constitutional values and morality. So there was a mains question on the constitutional morality. So the idea is the anchoring of such prompts, the foundational prompt should be anchored on constitutional morality. So integrate the structural rules like Anthropic's constitutional AI. It requires outputs to meet helpfulness, harmlessness, and honesty benchmarks. That is why Anthropic is very famous today. Next point is bias detection. Bias detection, the model will self-evaluate by its own. It will evaluate the language generation to catch subtle discriminatory shifts. Example, upgrading a resume description from community service to leadership simply by changing the name from Jennifer to Jeff. Okay, so just because of changing so gender this is your gender discrimination that you have observed, that if you are Jeff is a male, if you are a male, then from uh, community service it will be modifying to leadership. Okay, so this is your gender discrimination which happens by AI. Okay, so before doing that, it will self-evaluate the language. Okay, various instances of bias and discrimination which is undertaken by AI. For instance, why it happens? Because the AI algorithms, it's all based on the algorithms on biased data, and on if it is trained by biased data, the algorithms is trained on biased data, then it will certainly perpetuate what? Social prejudice. Social prejudices will be perpetuated. For instance, racial prejudice. For instance, gender prejudice. For instance, caste prejudice. All this will be, all this will get perpetuated. For example, there was a famous example example that you can quote is LinkedIn. LinkedIn AI-driven job search. LinkedIn's AI-driven job search system was found to recommend high paying jobs to men rather than women. So this is the unfortunate reality of the LinkedIn's AI-driven job search. Now they have modified it certainly, but it happened for a brief amount of time that the job search was found to recommend higher paying jobs more frequently to men than equally qualified women. Okay. Another such example is compass algorithm. Very famous. You can quote all these examples. Compass algorithm by US. It happened in USA. It showed racial bias. It depicted racial bias. Racial bias in what? In what field? In predicting crime, crime recidivism. Okay. So this was an algorithm which is used in US. So such kind of biases and discriminations are quite prevalent in the AI era, in the AI world. Key challenges, ethics washing. So big tech firms use terms like trustworthy AI as marketing shields, keeping actual software models insulated from public accountability and binding legislation. So on the outset, they are saying that this AI is trustworthy just for the purpose of marketing, है ना? But their core software, है ना, is devoid of any public accountability. It is devoid of any binding law legislation. Okay, so this is another issue with the big tech firms. Okay, so AI tools have issue around this. They also have issue around consent. They have issues around consent and autonomy. Consent and autonomy. So they collect and act on data without informed consent, undermining the user autonomy. This is quite a prevalent thing which is observed. Collect and act on data without consent. There is no consent, no autonomy. For example, targeted political advertisements using AI-based profiling. A famous example is very famous. You have to use it. Cambridge Analytica case, and this is now recorded. This is now a recorded case, Cambridge Analytica case, which is how the Trump won the election. No, the previous term was won because of Cambridge Analytica. Okay. Another example was the Ghibli art. And I'm sure you must have heard about Ghibli. So issues around intellectual property and ownership issues. So last point is core method. Core method should be focusing upon public audits. So independent oversight frameworks must allow external researchers to verify how well a model's prompt guardrails handle real world scenarios, ensuring transparency beyond the internal claims. So this is why you should have public audits, especially of auditing of algorithmic auditing. This is termed as algorithmic auditing. Okay. So conscience prompting. So conscience prompting is a practical tool. Conscience prompting is a practical tool, but true safety requires enforceable government limits. Enforceable government limits on surveillance and data extraction. So technology serves human rights and not corporate profit. That is a major concern. Why? Because the sole agenda of corporate is profits. For most of the corporates, it is profits. And this is why they are even willing to sacrifice the human rights. Okay, they extract data for their own profit, and they are not bound by the government's limits, governmental legislations. And even government, it is start has various governments across the world have started using artificial intelligence for the purpose of mass surveillance. So you have to keep a note of all these points. Moving forward, the next news article is Seva and Samman. Seva and Samman for India's Shram Shakti. Okay, Shram Shakti. So the Union Labour Minister has placed Seva, service, and Samman, which means respect, at the center of workers' welfare governance. So this approach recognizes India's Shram Shakti, the labor force, the power of the labor force. So not merely just an economic output, but as a vital pillar of nation building, because they are building the nation. They are the core of it, core of the nation building. And that is why they deserve dignity, comprehensive social security, and ethical care. So this is where it becomes very dicey, because generally we see that the workers are devoid of any dignity. They are devoid of any social security and forget about any ethical care. And despite them being the nation builder. Okay. So dignity of the laborers. This is very important. Every worker deserves recognition, respect, affirming the intrinsic worth of all the honest labor from construction to even caregiving. Okay, so dignity is a must. Next is ethics of care. So you have health care, you have social security. Treat workers as full human beings with physical, social, and familial needs beyond just economic productivity. So generally, we treat, we perceive, it's a very important thing, perception. So we perceive the workers merely as in terms of the economic productivity that they produce. But beyond that, you have to focus upon the health care of such workers. You have to focus upon the social security aspect. Okay. Moreover, the focus should also be on shared responsibility. So you have tripartite cooperation between, you must have tripartite cooperation, triple cooperation between workers, your employers, and state. Okay, workers, employers, and state. So that you are able to foster a harmonious industrial relation, industrial relation, and sustainable national development. And this is the main idea behind which the labor codes, the four labor codes were created. ठीक है? Go read about the four labor codes, है ना? On social security, on occupational safety. Okay, various aspects are covered, minimum wages, all those things. Even it covers the gig workers. The four labor codes covers the gig workers. This is the first time in the entire world that the idea of gig workers uh, is officially inculcated into the official documents of any government. Okay, so benefits of labor code is various. Apart from this, first and foremost is the consolidation and simplification of the complex laws. So it provides a big boost to investment promotion and employment by decreasing the multiplicity or definition and multiplicity of authority for businesses. Okay, so first benefit is consolidation and simplification of complex laws. Second benefit is, and I'm just mentioning because if you have not read about labor codes, I'm just mentioning them. Second is what are the benefits? Single licensing mechanism. Single licensing mechanism. So these labor codes, it improves the labor administration because these code provides for one labor, one return, one license, and one registration. Okay, it provides for one labor, one return, one license, one registration. Try to include this in your answer to smoothen the compliance. And this is why the focus is on single licensing mechanism. Another advantage is easier dispute resolution mechanism. Another benefit is easier dispute resolution. And we can see that the industrial disputes tend to become very complex and they extend for a longer period of time. Okay, so here another idea of labor code is easier dispute resolution. The codes simplify the archaic laws dealing with industrial disputes and revamping the entire adjudication process. Now, all this will pave way for the earlier resolution of disputes. Another advantage, not just for the laborers, but for the business corporates as well, that it will encourage ease of doing business. So according to the industry, such reform shall boost investment and improve the ease of doing business. Another important thing that you can mention is it will become more inclusivity. There have been dedicated questions on inclusivity. So the labor codes tend to make the system more inclusive. Okay, India is one of the earliest economies to incorporate the social security. Here we are talking about social security, na? So social security for the gig workers, even gig workers, we are trying to include them in the social security architecture. Okay, and with in terms of the economy, it is tending to formalize the economy. If you are providing social security, so essentially you are trying to formalize the economy because what we have seen is more than 85% of our workforce of our labor force is associated with informal economy. So we are also promoting formalization of economy through social security. And obviously, one another factor is cooperative federalism. I'm giving you all sorts of points that you can write upon. Dimensions of points. Cooperative federalism. Why? Because labor is in which list? Union, concurrent, or state list? It is, do remember this very, very important point. The labor is in concurrent list. and concurrent list of 7th schedule of the Constitution. So state governments have been provided with certain exemptions in provisions as per their need, like the Minimum Wages Act. So this is how you are promoting cooperative federalism also. Very unique point. You can write this point in the labor question as well as in the if a question arises on cooperative federalism. So I hope I have covered different sorts of dimensions for you. Okay. And last is expanded coverage. Social security coverage has grown from 19% in 2014 to over 64%, covering 94 crore people. It's a transformative expansion of protection against vulnerability. Very, very important. Moving on, the next news article is very, very important. The Index of Services Production, ISP. So India released its first sub-sectoral trial, and a trial of ISP. This was the first such thing that has ever happened. It's a landmark high frequency macroeconomic indicator dedicated to measuring the performance of the services sector. Okay, so this is the first time that this kind of thing is happening, and you have to note down this that it was developed by MOSPI as it fulfills the critical statistical gap left by the Index of Industrial Production. Now you have to mention it in the comment section. Index of Industrial Production is released by which department or which ministry? Okay, which tracks IIP, Index of Industrial Production, tracks only the industrial activity, whereas this Index of Services Production, this is going to track the services sector. So what it measures is short-term changes in the volume of output produced by India's formal services sector relative to the base year 2024-25, covering 19 subsectors that represent approximately 60% of the services sector. Okay, so all in all, what you have to remember this is that base year. This can be asked in your prelims. What is the base year? And not all the subsectors you have to remember. Just few of the subsectors like wholesale and retail trade, transport, banking, insurance, telecommunication, hotels and restaurants, real estate, professional, scientific and technical services, arts, entertainment and recreation, health and educational services. So all these are the subsectors which are covered by ISP, Index of Services Production. Now this has been launched for the first time ever because this is not covered under Index of Industrial Production. Okay. Why it matters? Because 59% of India's GVA is associated with services sector. So it's a dedicated monthly indicator. Every month it is going to be published, which will improve the accuracy and timeliness of national income estimates. Okay, notably 14 of the 19 subsectors recorded double digit year on year growth, double digits year on year growth. And that is why ISP becomes very important and pertinent while calculating the national income. Okay. Moving on, the ISP's top performance and methodology. So ISP uses price deflators like WPI, wholesale price index for the wholesale trade, CPI, consumer price index for most of the other sectors. Okay, why are we using such kind of price deflators? Why? Because to convert the nominal data into real volume figures. Okay, so we need to obtain real data so that you want to adjust the inflation. So in order to adjust the inflation, you are using a question was asked in your prelims on your GDP deflator once. So you can also expect such kind of statements in your prelims as well. So the first time Indian statistical application GST data powers calculation for trade, accommodation, real estate, and professional services. And a 37.2% is accommodation and food. It's the fastest growing subsector. Retail trade 30.8%, administration and support 28.7%, third highest growth rate. And a telecom sector also recorded very high double-digit growth. A strong digital infrastructure growth is happening in India because the we are promoting digital in India, and for it to happen, you need strong digital infrastructure growth, which is government is supporting this. So this is why all these subsectors are growing very rapidly, and the fastest among this is accommodation and food, then retail trade, second highest strongest performer. So all in all, you can remember this from the point of view of mains. It is highly unlikely that these will be asked in prelims, but for mains, you can remember one or two percentages which you can use. Okay. For instance, telecom sector. There's a question which could be asked dedicatedly on telecom sector. Okay. So ISP data is published monthly with a lag. Now you have to remember this. What is the lag? Lag of 60 days. Okay. So after 2 months, the data. So it was April, and this after May, June, in July, it was the data of April was published. Okay, the ISP data. So it has 60 days of lag. You have to remember this. Anna. And what kind of GDP deflators we are, price deflators we are using to in order to adjust the inflation and convert the nominal data into real data. Generally 29th of each month, aligned with international OECD and Eurostat. So we are complying with the international standards. Next is forward deployed engineering. Forward deployed engineering. So tech giants, they are rapidly expanding the FDE roles. Forward deployed engineering. It's a multidisciplinary function which combines the software engineering, AI implementation, and solutions architecture and business consulting. So multiple things are being integrated, multiple disciplinary functioning are integrated into one. So this is why the term forward deployed engineering roles. You are combining software engineering with AI implementation, solutions architecture, and business consulting. So FDE works directly with the clients to deploy AI solutions to real world business environments. Okay, closing the critical AI value gap between experimental pilots and measurable outcomes. So this is how the FDEs are functioning. They are directly working with the clients to provide AI-based solutions for real world environments. Okay. So you are witnessing direct client integration. So FDEs embed within client organizations. Okay, so they are embedding within client organization to understand the real-time business problems. First, you need to understand the problems. Then integrate sensitive enterprise data securely. Okay, you are integrating that data from the enterprise and rapidly building customized AI solutions. So then only you will be able to provide effective AI-based solutions by understanding what the real business problems are, what the real-time business problems are. Then only you will be able to integrate the data. Okay, the data of that small or big enterprise. Okay, so it requires a multidisciplinary approach. Okay, and this is why you have cross-model orchestration. Cross-model orchestration means integrating AI models from multiple providers into unified workflows. Okay, so from multiple providers, you are unifying the workflows using certain protocols. Yeah, protocols are like MCP, agent to agent. Okay, so this reduces dependence on any single vendors. Okay, this is what is referred as your cross-model orchestration. So it is a high premium career. Okay, very, very high premium career because of the strong demand and limited skill talent, making FDE one of the highest paying emerging AI careers. So now, and the most common thing that we have seen is that AI is going to take away the jobs, is going to take away the job. That is not entirely true. Certain jobs will become redundant, but certain new AI jobs are going to be created. But for that, you need to upskill yourself, you need to reskill yourself. Okay, because these have rapidly growing opportunity in India's GCC ecosystem. Very, very important. GCC, what is GCC? It is Global Capability Centers. Global Capability Centers. This has been in news, very important. Do remember this. So what is global? GCC, what are GCCs? Global Capability Centers. These are fully owned. These are fully owned offshore units of established MNCs, multinational corporations. Why? To handle the strategic operations like your IT, like your engineering, like your research and development, like your finance. ठीक है? So India is a global hub hosting over more than 2000 GCCs, which employs more than 2 million professionals, and it generates roughly nearly $100 billion in revenue. So GCCs are very important for the economic growth. GCCs contribute roughly, if I can say, roughly around 1.8% of India's GDP or GBA. ठीक है? With the revenues approaching approximately $100 billion. Okay, and acts as a massive employment generator for countries' STEM workforce. I'm sure you must have heard about this term multiple times, STEM workforce. Okay, so moreover, GCCs promote technological innovation. So they have shifted from back office tasks to high value work. So India now hosts the second largest enterprise of AI ML. AI ML is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So India holds the second largest AI ML talent pool globally, and which is largely driven by these GCC operations. Okay. Moreover, these GCC they produce IT sector disruptions. So GCC sometimes overlap with the domestic IT outsourcing firms, prompting debates on whether they threaten traditional IT export revenue. So multiple set of benefits of GCC. You can read more about them. Next is the Ravidas community. Okay, Ravidasiya community. So why was this in news? Thousands of Ravidasiya community members recently gathered in Phagwara. Phagwara is in Punjab, renewing their demand for recognition as a separate religion category in the upcoming census. So these are a distinct socio-religious Dalit community. Dalit community who follows the spiritual teachings, egalitarian philosophy that everyone is equal. Everyone is equal in the eyes of law, in the eyes of God, and mystic poetry of Guru Ravidas, a revered 15th, 16th century Bhakti movement saint. So there is a high chance that a question on Bhakti movement could be asked in this year's main. So you have to include Guru Ravidas in your answers. Okay, so these are your examples, not from static knowledge, but from current, the events and happenings that are happening, the events and incidences that are happening in the current scenario. In the prelims, a question could be asked on the time period. During this time period, so the question could be like, Guru Ravidas was the contemporary of which Mughal ruler? Okay, which Mughal ruler? Okay, this kind of question have been asked multiple times in the prelims. So a prelims question on Ravidas could be asked. A mains question on Bhakti movement could be asked, where you will have to include Guru Ravidas. So demographics and presence. Nearly 12 lakh individuals reside in Punjab's Doaba region. What is Doab? Area between two rivers. Very fertile region. Very fertile region. Suitable for agricultural activities. So 12 lakh individuals reside in the Doaba region, which is Jalandhar, Hoshiarpur, Kapurthala, Nawashahar, combined with Ad Adharmi movement. The community exceeds 30 lakh members. So that is essentially over 11%. That's a big population of Punjab's total population, big chunk of Punjab's total population, over 11%. And a 2009 turning point, an armed attack on Ravidasiya congregation happened in Vienna in 2009, which killed Sant Ramanand. So this catalyzed a widespread protest, and in 2010, Dera Sachkhand Balan formally declared Ravidasiya Panth a separate faith, consolidated its independent religious identity with its own scripture, Amrit Bani, own symbols and concept of Begumpura. What is Begumpura? This idea was directly taken by Sant Ravidas. So Begumpura, it's like a utopian region which is caste free, which is egalitarian, equal. Okay, caste free and egalitarian society. So I'm sure you must have read about Guru Ravidas in your static knowledge, in your static portions. He was a cobbler. So in state exams, it could also be asked about, there could be a question around the profession of Ravidas. So he was a cobbler. He focused on Nirgun form of supreme being. Nirgun means abstract, without any form and shape. So he abandoned Sagun. Okay. Ravidas hymns are also included in Guru Granth Sahib. So his hymns are included in Guru Granth Sahib. And his famous disciple, I'm sure you must have heard about Mirabai. His famous disciple is Mirabai. And Kabir made his appreciation. You must have heard about Kabir. Kabir made his appreciation known by declaring Santan mein Raidas. Very famous statement. He talked about Santan mein Raidas. Raidas, what it means is Raidas is saint of saints. Okay, so this was the appreciation made by Kabir. So Ravidas imagined an egalitarian city known as Begumpura. Begumpura, literally it means a city without any sorrow. It will be full of peace and harmony. How will you ensure peace and harmony? If it is caste free, it is egalitarian. Okay, so this was the current affairs discussion of today. I'm sure a lot of things you must have learned around today's current affairs for your prelims as well as mains point of view. If you have any doubts, please do mention them in the comment section itself. Okay then. Thank you. See you in the next session.